The Here's to Us is currently docked at Troy, New York. They put in a really nice marina here, and everybody has a side tie all the way down. They have a pump out and fuel at the end of the dock.
The trip we took from Troy Marina to Waterford to begin the Erie Canal was only 3.5 miles. So in this video, I'm going to focus more on the Erie Canal. So what I used to plan our journey through the Erie Canal, and this is our third time, is I referenced this map that I got. Have that for general planning. And then really an indispensable tool for me is the Skipper Bob book on the New York Canal system. It has all the canals in it. And it gets down to the decimal point as to where things are, bridges, guard gates, locks, all that kind of stuff, as well as some sightseeing things. So really a neat reference to have.
Well, I am here at the Waterford Visitor Center, and we're going to do a little bit of a tour.
Now when you get to that Waterford Visitor Center, boy, there is a lot of resources available to you there. This guide here called Boater Resources, they've done a great job. They get down to the nitty-gritty on the locks, all the information, no matter where you're going, some instructions in there. And then what I like too is a more detailed map of the canalway system, kind of one that you might use for hiking or driving, but it gets down to showing you some of the things that you will see along the way. So be sure to check in at the Visitor Center and get some free resources.
You can see the Here's to Us. They have upgraded their facilities with the electric. They have a pump out, and as I pan around, you can see there's plenty of space for boats to dock. And we are now looking at what is Lock 2, which will be our first lock as we proceed along the Erie Canal toward Brewerton, which is near the end of the eastern Erie Canal. Lock 23 actually is the end of the last lock on the eastern Erie Canal before you get to Three Rivers. So we'll be proceeding all the way to Brewerton, and it'll be a total of 21 locks. They're numbered 2 through 22 that we'll go through. There is no lock 1. The ladies inside that say that the Troy lock, which was 3 miles south of us, is actually lock 1, so it starts with lock 2. Visitor center here, mainly staffed by volunteers, but they do a great job. There is a shower for men, shower for women, and also restroom facilities that you have. It doesn't cost anything to tie up here. It does cost $10 a night for electricity, and then $5 for a key that you will have to be able to get into the restrooms and showers. Also, one of the things here, you'll see some shopping carts. There is a supermarket called Hannaford's, and they allow you to bring the carts back here. You'll have to get with them, and they will unlock the wheels so that they can go out of the parking lot, but every once in a while they'll come back and get the shopping carts. So really nice service there from Hannaford's. As we pan around here, really nicely decorated. In the next weekend they will be having the tugboat roundup. They'll be coming, so this place will be jam-packed. It's the weekend after Labor Day, and we missed it last time we were here. We're missing it this time, but if we were here, it's unlikely that we would get any space to tie up, so we're hitting it at the right time. Beautiful day out here, so we're going to take a walk up to lock number 2 and take a look at the structure up there of the lock, see as much as we can see on lock 2. So I am now at the base of lock 2, and you can see there's a bridge over there. We're going to climb up the bridge through these stairs here, but how cool would this be to have a house right next to lock 2 and be able to get to see boats come in and out, sit out there and barbecue. The beautiful park setting that's around here. Just love the Erie Canal and hope that they are able to keep the funding for the Erie Canal and keep it in working condition. It is just it's really something that when you look at the history of the Erie Canal, started out 40 feet wide and 4 feet deep, and now the controlling depth depth on here. It's supposed to be 12 feet, that's what it is, but we'll probably see something a little shallower than that. We will be going upbound until I think it's lock 20. Then it flattens it out, and then I think at lock 21 is the first downbound lock, but we'll check that on the way. So we'll be heading up in the locks for probably the next few days as we travel along the Erie Canal and get to where near Rome is, Rome, New York. So I've now crossed the bridge. We're still looking at lock 2. Up there on the top right you can see the big 2, and also on the top left the 2. So as you're going along, you can always know what lock you're coming up on. I highly encourage you to take a look at this with your overhead imagery, whether it's satellite imagery of your choosing, but you can zoom in and get a bird's eye view of the lock systems, and you'll see that those doors are mitered in a certain way. When you look at those doors, you say, oh, they're mitered in upward, and that's pushing against the water. So you can always tell, oh, we're going to be going up. If they're the other way, well, the water is coming from the other direction. So a little trick to be able to tell that. When you look on the satellite imagery, you'll be able to see the angle of that miter. So we are going to take a walk up those steps and see if we can chat with the lockmaster, see what's going on. Well, we are now at the top of the lock, looking into the chamber, and you can see that chamber. I think this one goes about 33 feet, and I can tell really there's been no traffic today because those lock walls would be wet if they had flooded the chamber to allow a boat to come in from the top, or if they had lifted a boat from the bottom up to the top, they would be wet as well. You can see the doors really aren't watertight, but they are mitered, like I said, upstream, and there is always going to be a little bit of water that flows. Now, this isn't the original Erie Canal ditch. I think it's off to the side somewhere, but as the Erie Canal was widened and widened, this became the present Erie Canal. You can see the distinctive blue and gold paint. They keep it in a nice fresh looking manner, and we'll take a look at these big locked doors that are down here from the top, and you do see water coming out there as well. So again, not watertight doors, but it is keeping the water in there enough to keep your boat safe and afloat. Let's take a walk over the catwalk and see if we can see what's up with the lockmaster. Well, we don't have a lockmaster at that little building on the downbound end, but we do see water runoff that's coming that way. Of course, the lock is over here. So the water is flowing from Rome all the way down here to Waterford. Distance probably of about 115 miles at least, somewhere around there. Now, at all of the locks on the Erie Canal and most of the other canals that we've been on, lock systems, you will have a little board here. We'll tell you where you are. The upstream elevation is 48.75. The downstream is 15.2. So you do the math, and you're going to rise, like I said, about 33, 34 feet. And it's going to tell you the next lock, northbound. If you went from here northbound, you would be going up the Champlain, that's C1. And southbound from here is the Federal Lock, which is about 3 miles downstream. We're going to be going westbound, so the next one is only 0.28 miles. And that's why they call this the flight of locks. It is 5 locks in a row, E2 through E6, and they're very closely spaced together because the terrain here rises very rapidly, so a series of locks will take us up, each about 33 feet. Well, here I am at Lock 2, and I've never seen this before, but let's read it. They said it couldn't be done. The building of the Erie Champlain Canal was considered impossible in its time, but visible here are the results, 2 centuries of canal history. Site of the locks of the 1823 side cut, entrance to the Erie Canal and Champlain Canal, so they joined near here. First lock of the present-day Erie Barge Canal, and the first step in the famous Waterford flight of locks that I just told you about. The Erie and Champlain Canals changed the face of America, opening the northern and western frontiers to settlement and commerce. What a true statement that is, and you'll be able to see that as we go along the way. The little towns that have a lot of history, some are still flourishing, some are struggling, but in any case, it is life on the Erie Canal. Well, here I am on the upper part of Lock 2, and this is where you would enter to go down toward the Waterford Visitor Center. Had a nice visit with Paul, the lockmaster, in there, and he enlightened me on a lot of things about the Erie Canal. And the reason that this is E2 was interesting because the original Erie Canal started down near Albany, and that was E1. And so when they started building the federal government, trumped the state government, and they said, oh, we are building this lock, and so they decided not to renumber them. This stayed number 2. That's the story that Paul told me. I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the Reader's Digest version. I also learned from Paul, who's been here for 2 years. I asked him why they don't charge a fee to go through the Erie Canal, and it would seem that fee from users would help maintain the canal and the locks. And he gave me the story of, well, originally it was put under the Transportation Department, and while the Transportation Department was charging tolls for a while, they decided to move that over to the New York Thruway Association. And so this canal corporation that is there has been moved a couple times. The New York Canal, or the New York Thruway Commission, was charging for some time. And then it was because, and I just learned this, is that some of the dams on the Erie Canal also generate electricity, was moved to the Power Commission. And from there, they started charging tolls, but in the last 5 to 8 years, somewhere around there, he's not sure and I'm not sure, they have waived the fees. So they didn't stop the fees, and I think at any one time they could probably start charging fees again. So that's the story that I have heard, just passing that on to you. Well, on my way to Lock 3, I remember this before, but you can see the water as it comes down, falls along here, that overflow. And also, while I was visiting with Paul, he got a phone call from the New York Canal Authority. Guard Gate 2 is stuck. So when we thought we were going to go tomorrow, we're not going to go early, that's for sure. They are going to have a person out there at 9 o'clock in the morning to see what happens. And we'll know probably shortly after that whether we're going to spend another night in Waterford or not. So, never have a schedule on a boat, but at least have a plan.